Another fantastic preseason performance for the Sacramento Kings. And after the game, De'Aaron Fox sings the praises of rookie Davion Mitchell. You have to hear what the Kings star point guard had to say about off night. Plus, you're going to hear from head coach Luke Walton and my takeaways so far from these first two preseason games. It's all on today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all regular season and all off season. If you're looking for in-depth analysis, game-by-game breakdowns, highlights, interviews with local and national experts, full coverage of your Sacramento Kings from January all the way through December, this is the place for you, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I've been a Sacramento sports media member, Sacramento Kings media member for the last 7 years. This is my 8th season covering the Kings, formerly with Sports 1140 KHTK Radio, now with ABC 10 Television in the California capital. And I don't remember preseason games being as fun as what we've seen in these first two games. Now, I always have to preface talking about preseason with this. It's very easy to overreact to preseason games. It's very easy on both sides, whether it's positive or negative. It's easy to take things away from preseason and think that's the way they're going to be from here on out when we actually get to the regular season, when there's a lot of factors that go into a reason team wins or loses. So the fact that the Kings were victorious, the fact that they're 2-0 in preseason, it's fun. The fact that they beat the Phoenix Suns, who are the defending Western Conference champions, and then they beat the Los Angeles Clippers, who got all the way to the were they in the Western Conference Finals as well? I honestly can't remember, but the Clippers gave the Suns a run for their money in the playoffs last season. The fact that they've started out the preseason beating both of those teams, yeah, that's fun to say. But in reality, we know it's not as accurate. It's not the Kings defeating those two teams at full strength. That doesn't matter. It's how the Kings perform in these games. It's what the Kings are able to do, how they're able to utilize their strengths. And their strengths are really one of the major things that I'm going to talk about today, because in these two preseason games, the biggest takeaway for me is the Kings are doing what they're supposed to do based off of their strengths. They're playing to their strengths, and it's resulting in not only them winning games, but it's resulting in them building significant leads and ultimately, like they did tonight in the third quarter, handling their business. But I'm going to get to all of that in the second segment, because we're going to start this show talking about the play of Davion Mitchell and specifically what De'Aaron Fox had to say about Davion Mitchell. It looks like Monte McNair is an absolute 2 for 2 in his first round draft picks in his first two drafts, not only as a general manager, but as the general manager of the Sacramento Kings, who we know notoriously struggle when it comes to draft picks. And it's interesting that these two seemingly home run picks that Monty has are both guards, and De'Aaron Fox is obviously the best player on this team. This is his team, and he is a guard as well. So Monty not being afraid to draft the best player available instead of going for positional fit. And we know that's gotten the Kings in trouble in the past, seems to be paying off for him so far. Now, again, don't want to overreact too much. This is preseason basketball. We haven't seen Davion play a real NBA game yet, and he's still very much a rookie, has a lot to learn. I'm sure there are going to be growing pains throughout the season. I'm interested to see how he does when he guards top-tier guard talent in the NBA. I'm sure there are going to be some nights where he gets exposed, but there are also going to be some nights where he absolutely shines, especially if he is the type of defender that De'Aaron Fox says he is. I'm not going to spoil it for you, although you've probably seen it on social media or somewhere online, because it's going to be all over the place. It already is all over the place. At the end of this press conference, this short press conference from De'Aaron Fox after the game, you're going to hear him compare Davion to other guard defenders in the NBA, and he's going to rank Davion in terms of on-ball defense. The ranking might surprise you, but I think he's right. Take a listen.
Hey, De'Aaron, nice game, dude. Everybody notices the physical transformation, the upper body strength. What is that? What are you feeling on the court? What kinds of things are you noticing that's helping you to do out there?
Oh man, physically I feel good. I feel ready. I feel Still feel fast. I feel stronger, being able to get to my spots. All of that. I mean, I'm still trying to, play the same way, shoot the ball better, still get guys involved. So nothing in that aspect is really changing. But we're pretty much just tuning up, getting ready for the season. That's how I take the preseason. Just building blocks to being ready for the first game.
Okay. What is your assessment of what you've seen so far through 2 games, and maybe specifically what it's like to run, with such a big group of guards who are all kind of doing their thing?
I think it's been good. Right now, defensively, that's our main focus right now. Making guys miss, being able to get a defensive rebound. We didn't do that well tonight, but with our defense, making them miss is what we did well. We got beat on the glass today. I think we have 14 offensive rebounds, so that's something that we have to do a lot better at as a unit. And then other than that, when I'm out there with those guys, I'm telling them, be aggressive. Not many teams are going to have, 3 different guys that could pretty much, stay in front of all of us, out there at the same time. So when those guys are out there, I just tell them be aggressive. Obviously, want the game to come to guys, but sometimes you got to go out there and just take stuff, and I let them know that.
De'Aaron, what's it been like to watch Davion, step up and kind of accept these challenges defensively? He was out there against some pretty good players tonight, and seems to be holding his own so far.
Man, it's great. It's great when he's locked in on the ball. It's like it's crazy to watch the way that he's able to stop and go. Shit hurts my legs watching, but he's such a great on-ball defender. Like, he's in the league right now. He's top 5, I say, on-ball defenders in the league right now. And when you watch him, it's just amazing. Like, it's something that's he does stuff on the ball that you just can't teach. And that's what's making him great. But on the other hand, like I said, I tell him, man, go out there and do what you do. You're gonna be out there to make plays for us, make it easier on guys, to score the ball. He does everything. I think he's gonna do everything at a high level, especially obviously once he gets used to playing at an NBA level. But defensively, it's already there. I mean, what he does on the ball translates no matter where you're playing, and he's showing that right now.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to have extraordinary strength and balance in those situations. Is there some of that you guys can watch and even add to your own game? The things he does?
Hell no. The things that he does defensively, that's a gift. Obviously some things can be taught, kind of like an off-ball defender can be taught a few things. And obviously on the ball, you can work at it. But what he does, just the detail, if you watch him play defense and the detail that he has and the way his feet and his knees and his hips are just moving, that's stuff you can't teach. It's not many defenders that can think him, Marcus Smart, Pat Bev, Drew Holiday. Not many guys can pretty much do that. And it's only a select few guys that can do that. And he has that gift.
Okay. You guys are having fun right now. It seems like good vibe in the group.
Yeah, definitely. Right now it's all about building, continuing to build. The season's right around the corner. We have 2 more games and then a week until the first game. So that's what we're doing right now. Obviously, continuing to enjoy playing. And obviously the preseason doesn't count, but you build in the preseason, you build in the off season. And once this thing gets rolling, we want to keep doing what we're doing.
De'Aaron Fox, who's not too shabby of an on-ball defender himself, saying, look, I cannot do, and not too many guards can do what Davion Mitchell does. I mean, he's putting him in elite defensive categories with guys like Drew Holiday and Patrick Beverley. That's just an incredible compliment to give a rookie, to put him in that group. And on top of that, calling him a top 5 on-ball defender in the NBA as a rookie when he hasn't played a single NBA game yet, that is about as high praise as you can give a rookie at this point. And De'Aaron Fox is not one to overreact. De'Aaron Fox is not like me, popping a mic and going out and just saying what comes to his mind, and it might be an emotional statement. De'Aaron knows what it takes to be a good on-ball defender in this league, and he's calling his rookie a top 5 on-ball defender already. That is an incredible compliment to Davion, and I think he could be right. It wouldn't surprise me at all. Now, I don't know necessarily how you measure statistically top on-ball defenders. Maybe you look at steals, which I expect Davion to have a lot of steals. Maybe you look at deflections. Who knows? I'm sure there's some kind of deep analytic that shows how good of an on-ball defender consistently you are. Maybe it's just defensive efficiency. Maybe it's opponent field goal percentage. Maybe it's a combination of a bunch of things. Regardless, I expect Davion to be close to the top of the NBA, maybe even, like De'Aaron says, top 5 when his rookie season is said and done. That praise from De'Aaron Fox is absolutely incredible, and it was very good to hear after the game. We still have to talk about the other parts of this game. What has impressed me the most by the Sacramento Kings, or about the Sacramento Kings, in these first 2 preseason games. Also, you're going to hear from Kings head coach Luke Walton, who does talk about Davion Mitchell, talks about the different guards and how they're playing, talks about the play of De'Aaron Fox, who was fantastic himself in this game tonight. We'll get to that in just a second. Before that, though, want to let you know that today's episode of Locked On Kings is brought to you by Sweatblock. And thankfully, I'm using Sweatblock right now. It's keeping me dry because I was sweating during that game, really sweating with excitement just listening to the G-Man call that game and explain and describe how smooth De'Aaron was offensively, how good Davion Mitchell was defensively, and I guarantee you that the entire Clippers roster could have used some sweat block during that third quarter when they were absolutely decimated and they had no answer for the Sacramento Kings. Sweat block, the antiperspirant wipes that work better than anything out there on the market. They're doctor created, doctor recommended, work for up to 7 days per use. They give you a dry shirt guarantee, meaning if sweat block doesn't keep you dry, you will get your money back. Been a bestseller on Amazon for the past 10 years, has over 13,000 reviews for you to check out. Currently number 1 in Amazon's antiperspirant category and manufactured in the USA. These are super easy to get. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it at your local CVS pharmacy if you prefer not to online shop. But I recommend going to sweatblock.com and ordering there, because when you do, you can use promo code Locked On to save yourself 20%. So get yourself a box of these Sweatblock antiperspirant wipes. Get rid of those uncomfortable sweat stains, the embarrassment of sweat throughout your daily life. Sweatblock will take that away. Locked On Kings is also brought to you by Sleeper. In 2018, the fantasy sports experts at Sleeper realized that fantasy basketball was broken. Games were being won and lost based off of whose players had more scheduled games that week. It made no sense, required very little strategy. So in 2020, Sleeper released a brand new way of playing fantasy basketball. Truthfully, the best way of playing fantasy basketball. It's called Game Pick, and it's only available on Sleeper. Because of Game Pick, fantasy basketball is quickly catching fantasy football as the top way to play fantasy sports, or at least the top fantasy league. In Game Pick, owners pick a single game per week for each starter to count towards their team's total score, ensuring an even number of games played between opponents. So the days of you losing just because your opponent's player played more than yours, those days are gone. The days of the mindless, daily, busy work of fantasy basketball that makes you want to tap out by 3 weeks into the season, that is gone. With Game Pick, they have you covered. It's week by week strategy, just like fantasy football. So if you enjoy that, you're going to love Game Picks. Download the Sleeper app and start a league with your friends today. You will not be disappointed. Where do I start with this Kings team based off of how they've played in the preseason, with what's impressed me? And again, it has really nothing to do with the final score. And it honestly isn't the third quarter that the Sacramento Kings had in this game. This game was tied at 51 at halftime, the Kings and the Clippers. And the majority of the Clippers starters, guys like Paul George and Nick Batum and Reggie Jackson, Eric Bledsoe, they played like normal in the first half. But the second half, they ended up sitting on the bench. I think Eric Bledsoe was he was the starter that played the most minutes for the Clippers, but he only played 16 minutes and 51 seconds. For comparison, De'Aaron Fox played 22 minutes. Tyrese Halliburton played almost 28 minutes, and Harrison Barnes played 24 minutes. So the Kings gave their starters some more run, their best players some more run, their rotation more run, and that makes sense. They're trying to figure out what they have. Luke Walton is trying to workshop. And of course, you risk injury and things like that. But the Kings aren't in a position to say, okay, De'Aaron, okay, Tyrese, you can take the rest of the game off after one half of preseason basketball. No, the Kings need this time for Luke to figure out the rotations, figure out which groups work together, and really workshop what type of team this Kings team is going to be, and if they're able to play to the perceived strengths. But in this third quarter, the Kings absolutely handled their business. And that's one of my major points with the Kings in these first two games. When they are supposed to be effective, when they're supposed to have an advantage, they have exploited that advantage in both these games. It should surprise no one, nor should it I mean, I should really say it shouldn't be surprising, but maybe it is for Kings fans that the Kings were able to exploit the Clippers bench unit with their starters as much as they did. But that's what they should be doing. I mean, they outscored the Clippers 38-17 in the third quarter, go on a massive 22-4 run or 24-4 run. Actually, it was 23-4, I think it was. Regardless, Kings go on a massive run to end the third quarter. To take a 20-plus point lead into the fourth quarter. At that point, it was garbage time minutes for both teams. And once again, that was the fourth quarter was the only quarter that a Kings opponent scored 30 or more points. In the first three quarters, the Kings held the Clippers to 22, 29, and then 17. That's a nice consistent theme from these first two games. And again, just for proper context, the Phoenix Suns didn't play Chris Paul and Devin Booker, two of their obviously best scorers, and DeAndre Ayton didn't play that much. In this game, there's no Kawhi Leonard. He's out with injury, and Paul George only plays really a half, only plays 14 minutes. So context is important, but regardless, the Kings playing against inferior competition did what they were supposed to do, handled their business. The offense came alive in the second half after really struggling in that first half. It's nice to see the Kings handle games when they are supposed to be in control, when they are the better team, when they have the better roster, when they have the better lineups. They should be winning those games. How many times have we seen this Kings team over the last 15 years play to the level of their competition, right? They'll beat a team like the Golden State Warriors in their heyday, or last season was the Denver Nuggets a couple times, or the Dallas Mavericks. They'll beat a team that they're not as good as on paper, and then the very next night they'll lose to a team like, I don't know, the Detroit Pistons or the Oklahoma City Thunder or something like that, a team that they should be beating and handling comfortably. Those are games that the Kings need to fix. Those are games that the Kings need to clean up. They need to play a consistent style of basketball on a nightly basis, because if they do, they have the potential of beating good teams, and they will beat the below average teams in the NBA. So what we saw in these first two games from the Kings in that sense has been very positive. De'Aaron Fox, I know I clickbaited some of you with my post-game Kings-Suns podcast where I said Tyrese Halliburton was the best player on the Sacramento Kings. Of course, I didn't mean that. As long as you have proper context now, and you could hear at the beginning of that podcast, I admitted that I clickbaited you. Tyrese Halliburton was the best player for the Kings in that win over the Phoenix Suns, but make no mistake about it, De'Aaron Fox was the best player for the Kings against the LA Clippers, and that really should surprise nobody, because for some reason, De'Aaron Fox absolutely destroys the Los Angeles Clippers. I mean, he finished with 23 points, also had a perfect 6 of 6 from the free throw line, which is fantastic for him, 3 of 5 from three-point range, which is excellent for him, shot 7 of 10 overall from the field, had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, did have a couple of turnovers, but not the end of the world. He was very efficient. He was really the reason why the Kings and the Clippers were tied at halftime, because there wasn't too much help that he was getting from the Kings starters. In fact, Harrison Barnes was the only other starter to score double digits. He finished with 11 points. And speaking of the Kings starting lineup, it was a little bit different this time. This is a starting five that I don't expect we'll see at any point during the regular season unless there are injuries. The starting five was De'Aaron Fox, Tyrese Halliburton, Harrison Barnes at the 3, Mo Harkless at the 4, and Tristan Thompson at the 5. That's the starting lineup. I know Luke Walton is workshopping some of these lineups and trying to figure some of these things out and play with some things a little bit, experiment. That is not a starting lineup that I expect this Kings team to really have at any point. So I wouldn't read too far into that. One of the biggest weaknesses for the Kings, really the biggest issue that many had and Luke Walton had in the Kings win over the Phoenix Suns in the first preseason game, is that they didn't take care of the basketball too well. They finished with 16 turnovers or something like that, gave up 20 plus points to the Phoenix Suns off of those turnovers. Luke Walton pointed that out as an area where the team needs to improve, and that's what you're looking at in preseason. It's not about wins and losses. It's about recognizing your inefficiencies and trying to correct them and trying to build upon them before the regular season gets here. And we saw that tonight from the Sacramento Kings. They only allowed 8 points off of 12 turnovers. Now, that number could, of course, go down. 12 isn't the end of the world, but it's certainly not bad. That's probably around middle of the pack on average. You can get away with 12 turnovers, and you can especially get away with only 12 turnovers if you're allowing only 8 points off those 12 turnovers. Meanwhile, defensively, the Kings forced 19 Clippers turnovers, scored 20 points off of those turnovers. That's the separation in the game. And like I said, in addition to that, the Kings held the Clippers to under 30 points in 3 out of the 4 quarters for the second game in a row. So just so much positive from these first two preseason games. A lot to like from this Kings win over the LA Clippers. And it's all about seeing how sustainable this is, right? And we saw a similar effort in this game that we saw in the Phoenix Suns game, even with guys not getting as much playing time. That's exactly what I wanted to see, regardless of the Kings win or lose. It's about figuring out if this team can be this, play this brand, play this style of basketball on a nightly basis. Can they become consistent? Because we know the only consistency with this Sacramento Kings team over the last decade plus is that they're consistently inconsistent, or at least it's been to this point. If they can fix that, they're in significantly better shape. Why don't you take a listen to what head coach Luke Walton had to say? Actually, before that, let's do one more sponsor read as I want to tell you about betonline.ag. You could have bet on this Kings and Clippers game tonight, by the way. You can bet on all Sacramento Kings action. But right now, the best way to utilize betonline.ag is to bet on NFL and college football. All eyes are on the gridiron as teams are back for another football season. As always, BetOnline is your number one spot for all the pro and college football action this season. With a new updated site and interface, even more odds, props, and contests, BetOnline continues to be the number one source for everything football. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Don't forget to use our promo code LOCKEDON to receive that bonus. From football to basketball, boxing, right to your favorite Vegas casino games. Don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season at BetOnline, where the game starts.
Another good effort. We talk about how, practice games, preseason, we want to play a certain way every time. And for the most part tonight, we did that again. Cleanup, the big cleanups from tonight is too many free throws, 25 free throws is too many to give up. And we got out rebounded and gave up 14 offensive rebounds, which is something that we struggled with last year and we've addressed throughout training camp. So those two things have to be much better. Overall, pleased with the effort we got from the guys.
All right, we'll start with Jason Anderson.
Hi, Luke. Nice game for you guys. Can you talk a little about De'Aaron's game? Just a real easy, smooth 23, I think you finished with. And maybe if you could get into a little bit of his physical just growth over these last couple of years. It's very noticeable that he's put on upper body strength, and that seems to be helping him in certain areas.
Yeah, he committed to it this offseason, and it showed. It's showing just by looking at him. But I think, even as he continues to play, he'll get more comfortable with some of the new things he can do as he gets stronger. His shot looked good tonight. When he's making shots, he's near impossible to keep in front. So he had a really good game for us. I thought he did a nice job of setting the tempo early as far as playing with the pace we want and attacking offensively. So, 22 minutes, pretty efficient night for De'Aaron.
Yeah. And, with Davion, seeing him tonight where, he's got guys like Bledsoe and Paul George, he's matching up with here and there. Well, how exciting is that to see him step up to those challenges as the players he's going up against get better and better?
Yeah, it's great. It's a great experience for him. That's why we had him out there so much tonight. The more he can play against those guys, the more he can start to feel and understand the NBA and really elite offensive players. I mean, those guys he was matched up against in the first half tonight are big-time NBA players. So, the way he works and the way he understands the game, the more he can get those reps and feel that, the more effective he'll be the next time and the next time after that, and continue to grow on that end.
Tony.
Hey, yeah, Coach Walton, I know we've been talking a lot about the defense, especially in the last game, but the offense, which I know you said you're not too worried about. Could you talk a little bit about that? That third quarter was pretty big.
Well, we made some shots and we got stops, which allows us to get out and run. And, when we're out in the open court, we got a lot of firepower. So to me, it's going to start with how we defend. Are we being active in deflections and coming in and rebounding? And if we're doing those things, we'll put up points, with the guys that we have.
And they seem like they're getting pretty comfortable shooting at three. Is that the case? Are they shooting a lot of threes and doing practices and things like that?
Yeah, we work a lot on it, and it's something we know, like the whole NBA knows now, the power of the 3-point shot, and we still want to make sure we're taking good ones. And for the most part tonight, I thought we got good clean looks where we're attacking, driving and kicking, swings. Those are the type of threes we want, and if we're gonna make them, we'll have a good chance. And if we have an off night, it'll be challenging, but I was very pleased with the amount of threes we got tonight and how we got them.
Luke, when you look at how this rotation might look going into the regular season, is this a situation where you might actually have a legit 9 or 10 man rotation, or do you anticipate that eventually tightens up to the 7-8 that maybe you're more comfortable with usually?
Yeah, it will. I can tell you, we'll have really 12, 13 guys that we feel really confident about playing. We're not going to play that many. That rotation will shrink by the start of the regular season, but it'll be more than 7 or 8, and it just has to with the amount of guys that we have and how well they're playing. So it's going to be part of the balancing act this season, but it's a good problem to have.
When you look at the wing and what you're seeing there, you're a little bit limited in the options at the 3. But how is that looking to you? And with the guys you do have that can slide up or down, are you comfortable with what you have over there?
Yeah, we're comfortable as long as we can rebound the basketball, and that's why we keep harping on it. We have a lot of really good guard play, and position isn't as important in today's NBA as it used to be, but between De'Aaron and Tyrese and Buddy and Davion and TD, that's a lot of talent. Those are guys we want on the court, but we can only play them for the minutes we want if we're able to get stops and rebounds. So that's where it's going to as long as we're doing that, Jason, then yes, I'm comfortable playing playing some of those guys at the 3.
Luke Walton still even keeled. Wouldn't expect anything less. A lot of positives that he talked about there. Great things that he had to say about the guards. Great things that he had to say about De'Aaron Fox, of course. But like he said, there are still things to work on. Free throws, getting to the line more. The Kings do have to do a better job at getting to the foul line. That's going to be an area where if they struggle consistently throughout the regular season, especially with the weapons that they have trying to get to the basket, get to the rim, if they don't take advantage of getting to the free throw line and then making those free throws, they shot 64% from the free throw line in tonight's game. That's going to be a letdown for them. And that's another way that this team can make a major step forward. So more things to work on, but ultimately, like I said, with the Suns game, it's the exact same way for me with this Clippers game, 90 to 95% positive. I'm not going to really go to bed tonight feeling any sort of way other than excited and more optimistic. As really the one thing that I wanted from this game, like we talked about at the end of last segment, was to see if the Kings could be consistent for at least 2 games, play the same way tonight as they did against the Phoenix Suns, and they were able to do that. So now I want to hear your takeaways, your thoughts on what De'Aaron Fox had to say about Davion Mitchell being a top 5 defender. Do you agree with him? Do you think that's an overreaction? What are you most excited about with Davion Mitchell? Your thoughts on De'Aaron Fox, the game that he had, continuing to be the head of the snake for the Sacramento Kings. I didn't really talk about Tyrese Halliburton, who only scored 4 points, but still was effective with 5 rebounds, 5 assists. Terrence Davis was extremely efficient. He scored 15 points on 6 of 11 shooting in 14 minutes, including 2 of 5 from 3-point range. He provided that spark, that offensive scoring off of the bench. Buddy Hield played 22 minutes, had 11 points, did take another abundance of threes, took 13 threes, only hit 3 of them, went 4 of 16 from the field. So the shot selection is in typical Buddy Hield fashion. Just want to hear your thoughts on this game in general, on the preseason so far, how you're feeling about the regular season now that we have these 2 preseason games in the books. And please join me for tomorrow's Locked On Kings podcast, as I'm expected to have my coworker, my colleague, and my friend from ABC 10, Sean Cunningham, back here with me on Locked On Kings. We're going to get his takeaways so far from these first 2 preseason games and look forward to the other 2 preseason games that are next week. The Kings now have a decent amount of time off before the next 2 preseason games to work on some of the things that they need to work on after these first two games that we've seen. So please join me for that episode. And of course, stick around for all Sacramento Kings coverage, all regular season long. Locked On Kings is your podcast hub for everything Sacramento Kings, your number one source of Kings talk, Kings entertainment, Kings information, interviews. We have it all. I appreciate you being a part of it today, and I look forward for you to be a part of it every episode from here on out. Until next time, my name is Matt George. You have been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.